Hey everyone, I hope you're all well. I hope you're all having the most amazing week. We're just waiting for our guests to join currently. We have got the most amazing session lined up for every single one of you. We're going to be talking about self-esteem and confidence today. So just hold tight, and I'm just getting the guests. We'll hold tight for 1 or 2 minutes, and we should be ready to go, guys. I want to say hello to everyone who's joining, and we've been trying to put this on for a couple of weeks, so I'm quite happy that we've made it happen finally. And today is we're going to talk about something very special and unique, and I think is very relevant to everyone, anyone and everyone. This idea of self-esteem, and confidence, and how we feel about ourselves on a daily basis, and how we view ourselves. And we have an amazing panel. We have people here who are going to introduce themselves and describe who they are, to really help us have this discussion for the audience, to help us really view and how we can be more self-confident and how we can view self-esteem. I know you guys a bit from what we spoke, but I think for the audience, I think it would be good if we all went round and we gave a bit about our background, in who we are, where we're from, and kind of what we do, if we do life coaching or therapy, and how we got into it and why we got into it, just to start with. So do we want to start with Coach Motty? Do you mind taking it away?
Yeah, sure. I'll start. Why not? So hello, everyone. Welcome to wherever you are in the world, whatever time it is, if it's coffee hour or not, which is basically all day. My name is Motty Chein. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I lived in Israel for 5 years. One of the things that got me into coaching was actually a little bit of my personal experience with overcoming stuttering and bullying, and also self-esteem. But also I was always fascinated by human nature, by human psyche. It's a fascinating thing that things are caused by things, and focusing on certain things does certain things that, like, we could change our minds, or we can focus on different things and shift them to have such a different outcome. I give an example all the time in coaching. I say 2 people do the same exact job, make the same exact amount of money. One at the end of the year has a lot of money, the other one has no money. How could that be? Because it's nothing to do, well, not nothing to do, but it's not about what they do. It's about why they do it. It's about their entire orientation towards it. If the person loves his job, he'll appreciate the money that he makes. He'll try to grow. He'll try to be better. He comes home at the end of the day. He loves it. He feels good with his job. He'll put that money aside. The other person who doesn't like his job, and he doesn't like himself, and he's not appreciating the money, wasted on bars and vacation, and always try to find ways to escape. So it's not about what you do per se. It's about why you do it, your orientation towards it. And then it's also what Chassidus is all about. Chassidus isn't necessarily a book that conveys information. It's a book that teaches you more about your orientation towards life, where you're holding your self-judgment of yourself. The whole Tanya is about self-judgment. It's not about, right now I'm a tzaddik, I'm a beinoni, I'm on this level, as to show it off to other people. It's not about that. It's about, how can I look deep inside me? And being human and being able to do that, being able to think about thoughts that you had, which only us humans can do, is a fascinating thing. And I love it. And thank God I've been coaching for the past year officially. I was on Shlichus for 2.5 years doing that. I was in Central America, Mexico, Panama, Colombia, all these beautiful places doing that. Yeah, and now I'm here. Let's do this.
Amazing. I just think it's so interesting what you're saying about, how we should view ourselves, and about orientation, and about how you got into it. It's so interesting. I look forward to hearing so much more from what you can give and your perspective. I love how we have such different perspectives here. So basically mine's similar to yours, but I've been a life coach for about 5 years now. And it all started actually when, I was a boy in school who was quite a confident guy, and someone who, had a 6-pack, and I was like, I thought I was the top guy. I thought I was, I could do everything. I always saw myself as someone who could achieve constantly, but in a way that was kind of haughty. So I'd put other people down, and it wasn't the healthiest of self-esteem. And before you knew it, this kind of placebo of me feeling better than other people kind of worn out. It wore down, and before you knew it, I wasn't myself. I wasn't feeling great. I was feeling very, very low about who I was as a person. You know, not really sleeping, not really eating, really bad, like not feeling good about myself. And I struggled for years. And then I went to university, and there was this really amazing man. He goes by the name of Apostolos, and he came and he sat with me every single week, setting goals with me, helping me become better, you know, helping me become the best person I can be. It's good to have you back, Yonasan. We'll come back to you in a second. And he within a few months, I'd gone from being this guy who saw myself as very low to someone who was now achieving, who was doing things, who felt better about myself. And he practically, in a way, saved my life. From an hour a week of coaching me, saved my life. And I realized I want to be that for other people. I want to be the sort of person to help uplift and take people to that next level. And from being in a state of downness and not great about myself, you know, there are so many people in today's society who don't feel good enough for whatever reason. They don't feel great enough, and it drives them to really dark places. And just having someone to bounce off ideas, someone to help you and hold your hand and take you through those stages and help you build and help you grow has helped me realize that, you know what, I want to be that for other people. I want to help hold people's hands. I want to take them on a journey of self-discovery, on self-love, on self-confidence. I want to help them be that person. And for the last 5 years, you know, I've put myself out there, and I've tried my best to influence people in the best way possible. And honestly, like I've never felt happier, you know. And that's the reason I want to do it. That's the reason I want to help people with self-esteem and confidence. So Yonasan, are you there? Are you with us?
Yeah, I don't know what was going on my end. So technology's getting in the way here. I think I sorted it out.
Hopefully our connection between all of us people, you know, hopefully that can keep your line going.
Human connection is the most powerful thing. Yeah, you're right.
100%. So my question for you is, you know, you're a bit different to me and Coach Motty in the fact that we do more life coaching. I would be very interested to hear what you do and how you got into what you do. And obviously we'll talk more and more about kind of like what we do and how it's different and how, because I feel like life coaching and therapy works hand in hand. I always send people to therapy as a life coach, and I always advise them, like, that's not my area, you know, go to a therapist. So it'd be very interesting to hear your perspective. And tell us a bit about you and why you went into psychotherapy and
sure.
etc.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I came into psychotherapy through the back door. I mean, I was originally studying to become a I was really interested in philosophy. I studied ethics. I studied theology. I had a hard time figuring out what I wanted to do. You know, I have very high trait openness, and so it was like I just loved everything. I loved ideas. I loved exploring, and so I figured, okay, well, my first solution was, well, here's a small topic. Well, maybe I'll study Hashem. I'll study God. I came to Israel. I became a rabbi. I worked as a rabbi for a long time, and it's not as though that wasn't enough, but it was. I wanted to do more. You know, in my work as a rabbi, you know, a lot of people weren't asking me questions in Pshat and Rashi. You know, they were really struggling with the fundamental issues of how to lead a good life. You know, how to overcome their issues, how to overcome their suffering, and. I had a friend of mine who was a psychotherapist in New York, and we were schmoozing, and I was kind of grappling with a lot of these thoughts of like, well, what else did I want to do? And for some reason, when he said to me something along the lines of, you're like kind of challenging me. Well, what would you do if someone had a panic attack right in front of you? And there's no reason I should have known. I mean, who really knows how to deal with a full-blown panic attack? Just kind of cold. But it struck a chord, and it was like, yeah, I need to know how to do that. That spoke to me for some reason. So I went to university, became a psychotherapist, and I've been working ever since. And I think it was mostly like I wanted to do so much, but what I hated most oriented me. I really hate human suffering, and that really like focused my attention with what I wanted to do as opposed to everything. It was like, I really like, the joke is like, what did I want to do as a kid? Up until like even now, be an astronaut. That's kind of like explore. That's pretty good. And so, well, second best is probably exploring. Well, first second best is exploring the human soul. So that's kind of how I fell into it.
That's so beautiful that you said. I just want to pick up on something. It's so beautiful that you said that. As a rabbi, rabbis traditionally, they help a lot of people. They teach a lot of text, and you would find yourself a lot dealing with people's mental struggles. And I think that kind of represents, a lot of what our society, I'm sure it's been happening for a long time, but a lot of our challenge or our society is facing right now is this battle with like, where do I fit in the world? There's so much going on. And there's so for my question for you guys, and like, I'll add on to what you guys say afterwards, but back to Coach Motty, like from all the people that you see and all the life coaching that you've done in your experience with people, like, what is the biggest reason that you feel or that you've seen from your experience that people have low self-esteem or low confidence? Like, what is it? Like, what would you like? Is there any key things or factors that you've seen that's like a common denominator amongst the people that you see that represent why they suffer from low self-confidence? And can you describe that and maybe even what you think that's not you haven't seen in your clients, but what kind of comes up in your mind? If that makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure if it's something that causes it, but I know that once you work on this thing or put emphasis on this element in a person's life, then the self-esteem automatically enhances instead of like goes away. Like someone starts appreciating themselves more, and I think it's appreciating and really understanding one's value.
Wow.
To understand what you love, what you like, what you're attracted to. Speaking here with a fellow psychotherapist, and I love bringing up this idea because I think this idea is fascinating. Carl Jung has this idea called circumambulation. And circumambulation means, well, the whole theory is that your potential lies in the things that you're attracted to, that are laying right in front of you, things that you're interested in. And that's where your potential lies. And many times we don't value ourselves enough or understand that we do have this kind of attraction to something. Like, for example, I had a client of mine who his father never really allowed him to explore anything besides for just sit down and learn Torah. That's the only thing that you're allowed to do.
Wow.
So we sat down and we spoke, and he had a lot of self-esteem. Like he didn't value himself. He used to get panic attacks in public and things like that. So I started asking, like, what are you interested in? What do you love besides for Torah? So he goes, well, I do like Israeli history. Like, okay, let's start researching some history. He started researching some history, and he started after a while, he told me this is the first time in his life that he allowed himself to do something that he loves.
Wow.
And that came from understanding that he has value, and he has his own values, not values that were put on him, not values that were influenced on him, not what society demands, not what anything else is like that. That I am a person and I am whole, and I have things that are different than other people. But that's what makes me whole. These are my values. These are my qualities. Wow. And once I appreciate those and love those to the fullest, well, not to the fullest, but at least trying to really get there, it already changes your entire perspective on society or on the way you see other people. People with a lack of self-esteem in general, and as someone who, I still have a lack of self-esteem to a certain extent, and I'm not trying to, God forbid, say anything bad about anyone, but when self-esteem is lacking, there is another reaction that we usually see, that needing approval. Right? Why does someone even need approval? Like, what kind of person would want approval? Well, a lot of us would love approval from our wives, from our spouses, from our clients, sort of that validation. But there's a difference between needing it, that I'm dependent on it, and loving it and appreciating it. So again, it's all about our orientation towards it. The moment I depend on something external to fill me up, I don't really appreciate myself. But once I start appreciating myself, I don't need to be dependent on anything external per se. So I think, yeah, so that was a long rant, but
Wow.
yeah, really understanding
So much
looking
juice.
inside. Yeah.
So much good juice there, like unbelievable, with this idea of like self-efficiency and like kind of relying on your own judgment and your own judgment of self and your own self-love, like having your own self-love tank that you don't need other things to survive. It's good, but it's not needed. It's not. And it's actually interesting because a lot of the clients out, I'm just want to link one thing that you said, is that a lot of people, when they don't do things they enjoy, when they're like kind of neglected or they're suppressing. I like to use the word suppression. Like a lot of the boys, I see about 15 to 20 teenagers a week, and a lot of them actually grew up in very religious homes where they weren't allowed to express, their wants and desires. So when you said this one guy loved history or, got into history, it was so interesting you said that, because that was like the first time he felt he could express, right? So it kind of really related to like what the guys I work with is that the more they suppress themselves, like they suppressed what they enjoyed and what they wanted to do, the more they were getting a message of my needs and wants are not good enough. Like if I can't express, so what do you, if you can't express yourself here, so what do? You start to express what other people want. If that means black hat, white shirt, learning the bass for like 12 hours a day. If that's what people around you want and you're so used to doing that, what you do is you become a person of habit. So you start to live an existence that is purely fueled by what other people want and desire from you. And I think this isn't just with young people. I think so many people in society like fall into this trap of, know what I want. I haven't grown up, I've been suppressed. Or I do know what I want, I just don't know how to express it. And therefore I'm just going to do what other people around me want. And I'm not
because what I want, because what I want is not important. That's what people think. What I want, what I really want for myself is not important. That's egoistical. That's not good for me. Why would I even want to pursue something like that? I have so many other things that I must take care of. I have a wife, I have children. What's important for me right now is it's not important. What I love is not important. And it's sort of this subconscious mantra that keeps playing in their head. Like, I don't deserve this. I don't need it. It's not for me. It's something foreign. And I do agree. It does become habit after many years. I've coached people over the age of 30, with kids, with kids going to high school already. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing when someone tells himself, I love myself. I do have.
Even you saying that, like, it's like bringing up emotion in me. Like, just the way you said that. It was really strange. Wow. Sorry, carry on. It was like powerful because like people don't say it. Like, and if people say it, like it's emotional because it's like we don't tell ourselves it enough.
Yeah. It's true. For years I didn't love what I do. For years I was like iffy about it, things like that. But
because you said earlier that you said you still like even us as life coaches, like even I feel like it's quite hard for self-esteem to like be 100%. You know what I mean? Like, what's your view on that? Because I don't know. I'm just kind of going on the flow right now. I'm just thinking like, is it attainable? Like, is it realistic to say to our audience, guys, you should be 100% confident in yourself. You should be like, you should never have a 40 day or have a day where you feel a bit rubbish about yourself. Like, where do you see that back? Like, where do you see the line? Do you see someone that should have a level where they feel good about themselves all the time, or do you think they should be balanced? Like, I don't know. Where's your position? Like, I don't know. It's an interesting discussion on how much people should feel good about themselves and for how long, and what does this all mean?
Use the word like should feel good about themselves, and
exactly, yeah.
it's like no. Okay, so on our podcast we had a guest. He's actually a singer, young kid, singer, extremely talented. And he uses this phrase, and I keep repeating it because I love it. He says, feelings have no morals. There's no way you should or shouldn't feel.
Interesting. Wow.
People can watch a movie and get different feelings from it. You know, I was watching a movie with, it's called The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith.
Oh, I love that film.
An old movie, right? So I was telling a friend of mine, you know, like, it was a really emotional movie. My friend's like, what? No, that's such a sad movie. And my other friend's like, what? That's such a motivating movie. Like, each person has a different way that they feel about this movie. This specific movie, because I just simply love that movie. But there is no way you're supposed to feel or should feel. And I think what is the most important part at the end of the day isn't how much self-esteem did I feel today, or how much lack of self-esteem, or how much doubt did I have today. I think it's about really understanding all of them and appreciating it. If you had a bad day, you feel like garbage, it's okay to feel like that. It's not about the action, it's about your reaction towards it. Okay, you don't feel good. What are you going to do about it now? What is the next step here out? Someone who doesn't have any self-esteem and doesn't appreciate their own values, they're just going to plummet down and say, yeah, I'm shit. My life is garbage. Everything is not good. Why should I even try? I don't want to. I don't need this anymore. Why would I want to feel bad? And you know, that's valid, because that comes from the ego, which is healthy in a way. It's simply protecting someone from getting hurt. Yeah, so we have this ego part of us, which is healthy in a way. And, you know, which is like, I just want to protect the body, and I want to keep the body safe. I want to keep myself safe. I got hurt today. I don't want to get hurt again. Simple as that. So now I'm not going to try. That suppresses curiosity. There we go. You're back.
He's back. We're gonna.
Yeah, it's not my night, guys. It's not my night.
You've been holding in so much that you got to say. So.
No, when it's my turn, it'll cut out too. You know, my luck.
We got you. We have faith. We know you have the self-esteem to not let the connection, the bad connection, get you down.
Yeah.
This is a test to see how life coaches are going to react to a bad connection. This is where we really show what we're about.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna change it very quickly, and then we'll not change it, but like continue it on like a different track.
Okay, no worries.
When the ego kicks in to say that I'm not good enough to protect me, and this fear comes up of what happens if I fail again, usually it's very interesting. We're not really upset about failing in that situation. We're feeling about our reaction to it, because I felt sad, and now I feel unproductive, and now I don't like myself, and I don't appreciate because I'm not really doing anything, and now I feel sad, and I feel sad because I'm unproductive, and now I'm productive, and that cycle just goes on and on and on. And that's something that actually we learned in Tanya, that there is something called atzvus, that you're not really sad about what you did, you're sad about being sad. That's where the Yetzer Hara really gets. That's where your ego really gets you. And I think when we have, because we all have this ability, capability to stop the cycle in its track, to ground ourselves and say, what is going on? What is happening over here? And I think someone with more self-esteem, or at least when we work on enhancing our self-esteem, we'll be able to sort of allow ourselves to want to control the situation a little bit more, want to really allow ourselves to ground ourselves, because if I really appreciate myself, I do want to be the best, right? So, wait, I'm feeling sad. Why am I feeling sad? What is going on? And that comes from like being aware of your values, aware of your feelings, aware of more things. It creates a positive feedback loop to productivity opposed to counterproductivity.
Wow. I'm sorry. There was a lot to digest there, and like I feel like a lot of people just need time to process, and like how the ego and like these are massive concepts that we need time to process. And I think, you know, I think it's time to give time to the amazing Yonasan Bender I kind of wanted to get your take on like from all the clients you've seen in psychotherapy, because we've spoken a lot from like a life coaching perspective and from our clients where we have a life coaching relationship. Yeah. So I'd be very interested to hear from more like a psychological perspective, like from your experience with the clients you have, like what has what have you noticed has been the common factor that people have experienced like very low self-esteem? Like where does it come from? Is it childhood? Is Is it like societal pressures? Like, what have you found from your clients, and why? And what's your view anyway? Like, on why people suffer? Yeah.
Well, yeah, within the world of psychology, there's a little bit of that there's a little bit of egg on psychologists' faces when it comes to self-esteem. From the 1970s up to the 1990s, there was a lot of research on, well, what's self-esteem? I think it's the most researched topic in psychology.
Oh, wow.
Self-esteem.
Interesting.
There's no standard construct of, well, what is self-esteem? Fundamentally, I mean, like talking about it as though we all know what it is. I mean, researchers have a very difficult time knowing what it is. I mean, it ranges from, trait researchers just say, well, what's self-esteem? It's being extroverted and having low threat sensitivity as personality traits, which is predominantly genetic. So, like, looking at it from that perspective, it's like, well, personality traits more or less locked in at age 25. So, if you're extroverted and low threat sensitivity, well, there you go. There was to the other question of more of a philosophical stance of, well, looking at the self and what exactly is that?
Wow.
I mean, that's we are not straightforward creatures by any stretch of the imagination. So defining self is that's an adventure, to say the least. And what psychologists were popping out with was, well, people who, however they were defining self-esteem in all these different ways was, well, okay, well, people who have self-esteem seem to be pretty successful. They have great grades, they have great jobs, they make more money, their relationships are better, they stay married longer. So there was this emphasis on, well, let's get everyone's self-esteem. And that's when you were seeing in schools this emphasis on you can do it slogans, we all grew up in the high schools with all these you're amazing, you're the best, posters plastered on the wall, and all the the reduction of competition in schools, everybody wins, everybody has the prize. There was a lot of different things that school systems started to do, and what they ended up discovering was, the more you try and get self-esteem, the more fragile you become.
Wow.
The more fragile you become, the less self-esteem you have. So it's not so much a thing that you can get as much as it's something you have to relate to within yourself. In Latin, the word esteem is estimare, which means to estimate.
Wow.
We don't build self-esteem. We have to make some level of an estimation of who we are.
Wow.
And the word estimation is kind of fun because, well, you don't get it right. There's no exact definition of who you are precisely. And with that in your pocket, it's like, well, okay, well, what do you do? Like, like getting back to, well, how much is genetic? You might be more successful having self-compassion for yourself as opposed to having self-esteem. And so that's kind of the divide in psychology right now, where you have some psychologists, and fair enough, it may work for some people that getting more self-esteem as though it's something that you can fill up on. Well, that might be useful to some people, but it seems like more and more the research, practically speaking, how you help people in self-esteem is saying, drop it, don't go after self-esteem. That is a lost cause. But self-compassion is where it's at. Accepting who you are, knowing your faults, and being willing to own them and hold them, and move forward in life courageously. That'll do everybody's.
Wow. I love how you've kind of, broken down the terms and explained different things and estimation. And I love how you ended with this idea of self-compassion, and you kind of switch the framing of the conversation to this thing that I need to go and get. And because self-esteem is kind of has an explanational, definitional kind of projection, whereas self-compassion is more of an action. It's more of a I can do something about. It's it's more empowering. If it's self-esteem something you want to achieve, it's I'm not there yet. I'm either there or I'm not. Whereas sorry, go on. No, go.
Yeah, it's kind of it's nothing wrong with trying to be confident and effective and doing your best. These are all elements of how self-esteem is defined. But it kind of reminds me, There was, I think it was like 15 years ago, there was a journalist who thought, you know what would be an interesting article to write? What would it be like if I lived on McDonald's for a year? And so breakfast, lunch, and dinner, this guy is eating McDonald's. And he was making it was a video documentary on top of it. It wasn't just like writing about, but it was a video documentary. And you could look it up. It's a really cool show. And what ended up happening is the guy had to stop. He couldn't make a year eating McDonald's. It was killing him. It was absolutely killing him. He went from a very athletic, robust, stable, high-achieving, really, really cool guy to suffering from deep depression, overweight. His doctor said, if I didn't examine you before this experiment, I would have thought that you were an alcoholic for the past 30 years. Your liver is that bad. And so it's like, well, sometimes, you're in Israel, McDonald's can be, depends where, it's kosher, but a little bit of McDonald's can be okay. A little bit of fast food can be okay, but if you're trying to live on fast food, it will kill you.
Wow.
There has to be something more.
And how would you relate that to life? That analogy, like how what is that?
Well, that's why.
So like how would you link that?
Well,
it's
in some sense here, in some sense, well, how are people measuring self-esteem? Generally, people are looking at the best person in the room. So, the standards people have for themselves are incredibly, unrealistically high. People go into a party and they feel uncomfortable. And the reason is because everybody is, and there's a really cool research study, people actually track how long people are staring at the most social person in the room. Everyone is staring at that human being. Everyone, whether they realize it or not, is watching the guy who's the best in the room. We're all measuring ourselves against that person. That's not going to help anybody because that person has a different history. They have a different personality construct. They have a different spouse. They have different parents. I mean, they have so much that's just simply not you. It's not helpful to compare yourself to them. So you really just, at bottom line, you have to compare yourself to who you were yesterday, fundamentally. Like, you got to do better than yesterday. And whatever you're not doing well, that's okay too. You just gotta be real with yourself and hold your flaws because they are not changing. What changes is how flexible you can hold them.
Wow.
And how much they bother you at the end of the day so you get what you want done.
Wow. Just before we come back to you, I like Coach Motty. It's got a nice ring to it.
Thank you.
I like to use, like, when I'm with clients and how I try and view myself. It's an analogy of a child. If like a 6-year-old child came up to you and told you they had these challenges or they were going through stuff, like, for some reason it's so easy to tell a child, like, don't worry about it, have compassion, you're gonna get through it, and like, you obviously have places to improve, but like that soft, kind, compassionate approach, it's so easy when it's other people, and what I've noticed a lot with people is that when it comes to themselves, like you said, these unrealistic expectations, for some reason we hold different standards to ourselves, and when I say different standards, I mean, we judge ourselves unfairly and we expect things from ourselves, taking all things into consideration, unrealistically. And I love this quote that I always tell my family and friends is to have low expectations but high hopes. In life, obviously, we should hope, hope I'm going to get a good grade, hope I'm going to have great relationships with people, but always be prepared for the worst case scenario. Always be prepared for things not working out. Things sometimes don't go to plan. And sometimes with ourselves, we might hold ourselves, I need to achieve this, I have to achieve this, I have to be this, I have to be that, I have to be that. This black and white analogy. And if we don't, our world comes crashing down, this kind of extreme black or white. If I don't get an A star or an A or 90% on my test, I'm not good enough. It's like it's black and white. There's no in between of like compassion, of taking consideration all the scenarios that happen in your life. And what I found is that, different people, who kind of have these high expectations of themselves, tend to be the ones that, doubt themselves the most because they have such high expectations. If they don't achieve it, like that drives them into darker and darker places. I once read this amazing analogy about self-esteem, or I'm really reconsidering my whole view on self-esteem because of what you just said. So like I'm like I can feel myself judging myself as I'm saying self-esteem. But there was a guy who spoke about the analogy of poker chips. I don't know if you've seen this YouTube video, but he says that every person in life in a game of poker, the more confident in a game of poker, I don't know, I don't really play it so much, but the more chips you have, it's kind of the more power you have in the game to bet and to do things. So he says that people in school, you start off in school, you have a cool kid who's like the captain of every team, and every time he does something well, he gets like, the teacher tells him he does so many good things. He gets like 100 poker chips, 200 poker chips, Then there's the kid who's like a bit nerdy on the side and he gets last picked on the team. He like minus 100 poker chips, And before you know it, those kids that like get pushed aside or get put down constantly, have like 10 poker chips left, and in class they don't even want to put their hand up because they have to go all in. They got the 10 chips left. So they're playing life like the game of poker. They're playing the game of life very hesitant. Everything's like, I don't know if I should go for it. I don't know if I should take these opportunities because I've only got 5 poker chips, and if I use them, I'm out the game. Whereas people who go through life, with this self-compassion, self-love, being told, positive reinforcement, obviously not too much, as you said before, because it might make you too soft and too fragile. But this idea of having this balance and having more poker chips in life, and the more poker chips we can give ourselves, by that self-compassion and self-love, by telling ourselves, it's okay, you didn't do this today. Like, obviously try and improve, but beating yourself up at the end is only going to remove these poker chips. And I like this. I kind of use the analogy to help me, and I hope the audience might use it. This idea of like, how many poker chips do I have? How can I give myself more poker chips? How can I withhold my faults? Meaning, like you said before, like the negatives that I have, how can I be okay with them? Like these, I for example, for me, I struggle a lot with assertiveness, like being able to say no and setting boundaries. And I've realized the more that I started to have compassion and like feel good about myself, I'm able to naturally be more assertive, because people who tend to be really non-assertive, who say yes to everyone, it's because they don't, like we said before, Coach Motty was saying before, that like if we see other people's needs and wants is higher than ours, then why would we say no to them? If they're more important than me, then why would I say no to them? The more we have self-love and self-conscious, like, what? No, I need to have me time. What? I can't do chesed 15 hours a day. What? I want to achieve this goal, so I need to be limited with social life. And the more you have this self-concept, self-image, and self-love, you're able to be more assertive and assert what you want in life. And I feel like for me, assertiveness has been like a big, massive change in my life. The more assertive, and not in a rude way, but the more assertive I've become, it's like really benefited my life. So first of all, if you have anything to say on what we said, Coach Motty, like feel free to add on to that. But my next question was like kind of moving towards like the conclusions, like moving towards the direction of the light, is how can people listening on the call, like how would you suggest they like move forward with self-esteem and confidence? Like how would you suggest like, them progressing in their life if they're struggling, or if they're sitting listening to the call and just being like, I just don't feel great about myself. Like I'm just in a bad place all the time. How would you go about giving them like a few minutes just to like, like pick them up a little bit? Is there anything you can tell you they can do?
So that's actually a very, very good question. Obviously, every single person is different, and there is no one thing that'll always help. But I do want to add something onto what you said before, and maybe it'll help explain it. When we decided to do this live on self-esteem, I was thinking, what is self-esteem? And I sort of got to a conclusion in my head, and also supported by your therapist. I mean, I got this epiphany, like I sort of reconnected it through things that you said and explained self-esteem, that self-esteem, I don't think is the goal, and I don't think it should be the emphasis on what we focus on in order to grow. I think self-esteem is a result of doing something. It's a result of having compassion, self-compassion, plus self-resilience, plus this, plus there's a whole bunch of different things that we do, because humans, we're a composite. We're a composite of many different things, of our speech, our will, our thoughts, our dissonance of our thoughts. We're a composite of so many different things, and these different things clash into each other all the time. Like I really want this, but I don't think it's good for me, and it clashes into each other. Now, because it's a big clash, we start stumbling over ourselves. Like, what's going on? I don't want to think about this. But when we sort of regulate ourselves and do value ourselves in a way, these clashes are softer, and then we know how to handle them. We know how to, it's not that big of an impact. And I think by allowing ourselves to take all of these different parts of ourselves and assessing them properly, I think that's what self-esteem is. That we're not overwhelmed, that it's all in or nothing, that I have to put all my chips in right now, but rather, okay, let's take this one step at a time. What is going on? Let's start estimating myself. Let's start seeing, and I think that's what self-esteem is. It's more of a result of something that goes on in advance. But to someone who's actually having a bad day and doesn't feel good about himself and doesn't feel confident with himself, I would say, okay. There's this cliche saying, yeah, like, okay.
I love that.
Yeah, it's like the coaching, my personal, well, it depends on what relationship I have with my client, but I'll be like, okay, so what? Like, okay, like now what? What are we going to do now about this? But it's way more than that. And again, it all depends on the relationship that I have with the client. But, there's this cliche saying that says, it's okay, you're enough. So, like, I see the places, you're enough, you're okay the way you are, things like that. And I agree with it. But
it's okay not to be okay. That was a big famous song. I don't want to break people's cameras and stuff, but they say it's okay not to be okay. It's a really big song. But,
but like all these quotes, I think it's missing something. I think when saying you're enough, it's okay not to be okay, that's all validating a certain part, and sort of like regulating. Like, that's good. That's not bad. But what's the next step onward? And I think that confidence doesn't come from... Confidence comes after you do something. It comes after the fact, not before you do something. Say, I don't have enough confidence to go and speak to this person. I don't have enough confidence to go into a meeting with my CEO. Like, no one does. No one has this kind of confidence. Confidence comes after the fact. And I think that's a big part of what's missing in all these quotes. It's like, okay, I'm having a bad day. Let's be more productive. And let's try to actually take this productivity in the right direction. It's not you're enough. It's you're enough and you could be so much more. It's not that you're okay. It's okay not to feel okay, but how are we going to feel better? There's always, it's always like halfway. It's only like validating it. And why someone feels a certain way and how they feel is extremely important. And feelings are real. And whoever says feelings aren't real, and if you're having a shit day, you go, it's not a big deal. No. If you're having a bad day, that it's tough. No one's saying that it's not tough. And there's no place to downplay anyone's emotions in this matter. But what I am saying is that once we regulated ourselves, what will make us feel better tomorrow is by being productive, opposed to being counterproductive, which will just make us feel like this again. So it's always
counterproductive. When you say counterproductive, do you mean like self-destructive behaviors? Like, what does counterproductive mean to you? Like, if someone, when you say be productive, like, what does that? Obviously, it looks different to different people, but could you generalize it? What does that mean, be productive, and what does that mean, be counterproductive for someone who's not feeling great? So I'm not feeling great today. So what does that look like in your?
Productive, yeah. So the way I use productive in coaching, at least in the terminology I use it, is if what I do aligns with my bigger goal.
Wow.
So, for example. Is going on vacation a bad thing? No, it's a great thing. But is it good? For example, if right now, is it a good thing? Is right now blowing out $10,000 on vacation a good thing, opposed to, you're saving up for something? What's your goal? If your goal is to buy a house or to save up a certain amount of money, then spending all that money on an extremely expensive vacation is not a good thing. Is vacation good? Is vacation bad? I don't think that's a question. The question should be, is it productive right now or counterproductive? Or try to find an intermediate. Try spending $2,000 on vacation instead of $10,000. No, it's always about assessing. What is the most productive thing? Does it align with my bigger goal, with my bigger dream, with what I really want? And I think when people actually tie themselves to a dream, to a goal, and not the people and not the things, wow, who said that? I forgot who said that. I think it was, no, it wasn't Jung. Whatever, there's a quote like that saying, like, if you have a goal, then you need to tie yourself, your future into into a goal and not into people or things. I don't remember the exact
into
quote.
Something that's bigger. I know what you're talking about, like into something that's bigger than you. Like,
yeah.
If you tell yourself, it's like, if you're I know Rabbi Kiva Tat, it's very different, but he says that if someone's depressed or down, he always advises them to do volunteering, or because that takes you out of you. It's like, I'm part of something bigger. I'm part of something, and you get that a lot when people are part of a team or a group or in a chavrusa. They're doing when you're on part of something bigger, you're much more motivated.
Yeah, for sure. But again, it also depends on your orientation of doing it. If you're doing it to run away from a feeling, or you're running it to actually make yourself feel better, So again, there's so many factors over here, and every single step that someone takes needs to be really thought out. Does my action align with my bigger goal, with my bigger dream? Is it something that I really want to do? Because if I do something, right? If right now I go out and help a friend, which is a great thing, it's a beautiful and powerful thing. But if right now me helping that friend takes away so much, if it takes away quality time with my wife, if it takes away time that I am working or an important meeting that I have and things like that, is it good or is it bad? And it's such a hard place. And I think what we need to do is, and this happens so many times.
Yeah.
We don't prioritize what's actually important to us, and to each person it's different. But once we're able to properly prioritize and say, this is my priority right now.
Wow.
I'll focus on this first and this next. It's the same exact thing as, for example, as caring about someone else instead of caring about myself. Caring about someone else is important, but is that the priority? Or should I first focus on myself? It's like, this is good and this is good, but what is the most productive thing that I could do right now to reach a goal?
I think Coach Moishi for president, that's a thing.
Motty. Coach Motty.
Coach Motty, I don't want to keep Moishi. Coach Motty for president.
Because there's a Coach Moishi, actually. Moishi Chain, a great guy. I think he was on slide.
I think that's why I'm confused, because I follow his stuff as well, so I always get TV. Baruch Hashem. I love what you said before as well, like the kind of two aspects of number one, it's okay to have a bad day, it's okay to have tough emotions, it's okay to be uncomfortable, it's okay to have anxiety, it's okay to, people have that, it's emotions, the rave of emotion, that's okay. But at the same time now is, what can I do tomorrow from a life coaching perspective? What practically can I do that's going to be productive to me feeling better or productive to my bigger goal? I think those two ideas are really beautiful. So
it builds a persona, it builds a person's personality more, and they're allowing themselves to feel themselves a bit more, and then feel more confident, more self-esteem.
Beautiful. And Yonasan, is it Yonasan or Yonasan?
Yonasan.
Okay, Yonasan. Yonasan.
In Israel, Israelis always call me Yonatan, and I just give up. I can't fight that battle.
I can imagine. I'm a real Ashki, even though I don't look like it. I really stress the Yonasan. That's it's my Ashki blood.
Yeah.
So how would you advise people from your? I know you have a different definition of. So let's just say self-compassion, from what you said, self-compassion, self-love. How would you advise people to go forward if they're going through, if someone came to you and said, you know what, I'm just not feeling great, and what would you what direction would you tell them? How would you approach this topic?
Right.
Someone came to you and said, I'm not feeling great. Can you help?
You know, the problems people have, they center around the relationships that they have with people. They're never problems in isolations. It's my problem with my wife, my problem with my coworkers, my problem with my friends, my problem with my parents. It's rare to ever find someone who has a problem with themselves. And sometimes you kind of have that. I mean, you say people who are suffering, say, from schizophrenia, where fantasy and reality are the boundaries between those two almost don't exist. That's a problem with yourself. And that's a serious problem, fair enough. Or say personality disorders where one's emotions are so intense that life isn't stable enough to form an identity. Well, that's a problem with yourself. So that definitely does happen. But predominantly, one's problem is with others. And we're beasts of burden in some sense. As Coach Motty, you were saying, we need to take responsibility. The caveat is it has to be your responsibilities that you take on, not someone else's. Not living someone else's dreams, but living your own. And that's a tough business, because if anyone's willing to live their dreams, they have to be able to face failure. They have to face their actual shortcomings. That sure, you love yourself, but you also have to know sometimes you're a big fat jerk, and we all are. And hey, that's a part of life. There's a certain ethical element to that. Well, maybe you shouldn't like those parts of yourself necessarily. They definitely have something to say, but to give them carte blanche, authority over one's life and say, well, we got to love that too. I mean, yes, in some sense, but in another sense, well, let's pump the brakes a little bit. One of the fundamental reasons why self-esteem, I believe, is such a hot topic today is we're the West specifically is in a meaning crisis. That there isn't necessarily a moral or ethical compass that people can buy into as a narrative. And well, if you don't have a moral compass, well, where are you going? So it's kind of as soon as you want to open the door to loving yourself, you also have to open the door to hate yourself. But that's where the self-compassion comes in. Is well, that's okay too. That's fine. We can do that also. No hang-ups. That's okay. But that's incredibly difficult to do if your relationships are out of order. Which kind of getting back to your initial question, why is self-esteem, again, not just a moral a meaning crisis, that Western society is facing, but there's also a crisis of dad deprivation. When it comes to, say, suicide, dad deprivation is the most significant factor in why people commit suicide.
What was that? Dad deprivation? Dad
deprivation.
You're not having a father figure around, or what does that mean?
Not having a father around. Not having father around is a huge factor in why people feel the way they feel about themselves. It is the number one factor, the biggest factor in suicide is dad deprivation. And dads challenge you. You gotta think of the classic dad, dads tease, they poke around, they wrestle, they push back a little bit. Dads are the primary source of learning how to deal with negative emotions like anger and sadness. Moms are good too. Don't get me wrong. We need to have moms also. But dads actually do something very specific, and it's dads defragilize children. It's the classic. With my kids, I toss them in the air as high as I can. I teach them that being afraid is okay. Danger is not going to break you. And my wife screams at me, don't throw them so high and do it on the grass. You don't want to drop them on the concrete. What are you doing, you idiot? Wow. Okay, and that's fair enough. That's why we need moms also. Moms have to regulate dads, But, and also moms teach fairness. Dads are not so much in fairness necessarily as a we're more disagreeable. So, that, you have to resolve that issue somehow. And so, if it's possible to, people coming in with relationship problems, if it's possible to salvage the relationship with parents, that's essential, because
Wow.
is next to marriage, maybe even in front of marriage, that is the most important relationship you're going to have. And if you're carrying something around your neck that you can't resolve things with your mom or dad, specifically your dad, well, good luck to you, because the parents are a map of what's normal. And if there's problems there, that map of what's normal, if it's not working well, is going to lead you to places that are not going to work well outside the relationship with your parents. So sorting out your relationship with mom, sort out your relationship with dad, make that work. That's vitally important.
Wow, I'm sorry, like that was so powerful at the end. Like, I mean, there's probably so many people just thinking that's hard territory to navigate, but it makes so much sense because we model a lot of behavior on our parents, and so maternal and paternal, and so the father figure is so close. But by the way, if people have questions, feel free to message them in, and if anyone at some point wants to join the call and ask any of us questions, like I'd be very happy for you to come on and say it and ask us a question. But yeah, I just want to say that was like so powerful, and people, if you are listening, like the therapist said it, like it's good to try and mend those relationships, and that's deep rooted. It's really, 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 really incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of just have like not a different approach, but mine's just more. I kind of see like, being at I'm not. There's no way near my self-love and self-compassion isn't where like I would always love it to be, but I do feel like over the years, things, my life have woken up, and a lot of my day has felt a lot lighter than it used to be, where little things I'd be very sensitive quite a lot of the time, a while back, and the world I was much more fragile, and I feel more recently, thank God, that I've become a lot more resilient in the fact that like when someone said something or I don't feel as guilty, and I don't negative emotions don't pull me down as much as my day as they used to. And I feel like over time, just allowing myself to make mistakes and to do things wrong, and instead of spending like 2 hours or 3 hours thinking about what I did wrong, just saying, you know what, it's okay. And I know it's hard for people to do, but what I've been trying to do a lot is trying to use logic and this idea of evidence as opposed to relying fully on feeling. Meaning, like I always use this example of like a court system. Someone says to me, I'm just not good enough to start a business, and because I can't achieve, I always fail at everything I do. So I'll say to them, "Where's your evidence? Like, has there been times where you've achieved things?" And they'll have like 20 things that they achieved. It could be, like getting through school, or achieving a grade when you were younger, or having a positive relationship, or and they come with, and as I question them, they have more and more things that they more and more evidence, logical evidence of why they could achieve something. And I ask them why they don't think they can do it. And they have one or two things, like big things that happen, one or two things that like, and that becomes their point of reference, the negative thing. So I always, for me, like what I feel is good for self-esteem is to always challenge those beliefs, those emotional beliefs that are kind of a lot just kind of based on stories and narratives we tell ourselves, and aren't really challenged with logic and thoughts and practicality. And I feel like a lot of the things that I've been doing to help me with like my emotions is to try and like be critical, like be logically critical with how I go through my day. I used to spend 5 hours. I said something to someone, and I accept them. I spent 6 hours feeling bad about it and not getting on my day. Whereas now I say I can talk to them later, and I'll compartmentalize it to the side. So for me, with self-esteem, it's been a lot about, my message to people would be to put your emotions and how you feel about yourself up to a logical test. Ask people around you, ask these questions, all these beliefs that you have about yourself. Try and put them up to a logical, factual basis and test those beliefs. And the more you come to the realization and challenge those feelings about yourself, the more you start thinking, wow, like maybe I'm not as bad as I think of it. Maybe I'm not as terrible. Maybe I can try things and see how it goes. And that's been one of my main philosophies over a long time, is to write down how I'm feeling and to challenge it with reality. Obviously, you need to have emotions. Emotions are important in life, like love and happiness, but sometimes with these things, sometimes living in reality can really help. I think it's been a while and we loved our guests, and I think we should just like conclude by all of us, if we could say like one final message to people, like on self-esteem, like kind of like summarize what your view on, and like maybe kind of like a message to people. That would be amazing. You guys have been absolutely amazing. I feel like we spoke about so many different topics, and please God we'll do it again. But I'd love to just hear like a final message from you guys. Like, what do you want people to leave with? We normally start with Coach Motty, so we'll reverse the order, change things up, change the strategy, and we'll hear from you.
Before I lose my connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The therapist knows what I was really thinking.
Yeah. Do what you think is dangerous. But I would think about it like, as far as like the message there, boiling it all down, is do what you think is dangerous. Not in a reckless way. I don't mean being reckless, and I don't mean taking chances and being unnecessarily jumping out of planes and all this stuff. I don't mean that. But if a person doesn't confront what terrifies them, then they'll stay terrified. And like as I was saying before, I think fundamentally one part of self-esteem, zeroing in on the self, is if a person retracts and runs away from the world, well, then all you have is yourself. It's almost like self-imposing solitary confinement. You just go crazy and delusional and self-confining yourself like that. So you have to do what you feel is dangerous, but with a strong moral sense, pulling out that moral compass and asking, what way is the right way to go? Where is your responsibility lie? And accept you're going to fail, because there are flaws to you, and that's just a part of the game. That's a part of the adventure. And so, like, push. You're made. There's more to you than you think.
Wow.
That's the bottom line.
Beautiful. I think that's an absolutely beautiful message. Like, I think people are just so appreciative of like you guys, and it's like, how often do you hear like great messages from different types of people? I'm sure there's so much online, but just to have people come together and just talk about it openly, it's beautiful. Coach,
I'll tell you what comes to mind. Hard does not mean impossible. That's it.
Just like let people think that through.
Yeah, hard does not mean impossible. I mean, so many times in life we affiliate both. Like, oh, it's so hard, I can't do it. Like, no, you could do it. It's just hard. Some of the most beautiful things in life come out of the hardships that we go through. In relationships with our spouses, we go through some hard times, but look what comes out of it. Really powerful, strong connection. Going through high school is hard. Getting a college degree is hard. Running a marathon is hard. Working out is hard. Keeping healthy is hard. It's not impossible. And the moment the moment I started understanding that, I started looking for the hard things. Okay, what's the hardest thing that I can do right now? Like, what is really difficult for me that I'm avoiding purposely because it's hard? I'm going to go pick that up. I'm going to go take it and see what I can do with it. And I'll try to lift it, and it's going to be hard. But that's the point, because I love it.
Wow. Hard isn't always impossible. Hard doesn't always have to be something that I avoid just because it feels hard. And in fact, you know, a lot of people tend to feel when they've overcome that hardness and they get through it, you know, they feel good. I mean, that's why do we all suffer so much in the world, you know? It's a big question. How good do we feel after we worked hard?
Yeah. Just to add on that, why are you so hard on yourself, you know? We use that thing like, why are you so hard on yourself? You throw around this word so much, you know, like, oh no, hard is bad. Hard is not good. I'm hard on myself, you know? That's not what hard means. Throw around terminology. It has an effect on us. It has an effect on the way we see ourselves. So let's stop using hard as a synonym to impossible.
100%. And I think just that enough. Like, I would just say that, like, do what you want because you are important. I think I'm kind of jumping off what you said because, like, of what Coach said earlier about people are scared to, like, do what they want, you know, like, and for me, like, that's so important. It's like, it's so important to me, and what I've seen is that like, at the end of the day, like, everyone watching, like, you are good enough, you are worthy, you are special. So imagine there was no one else in the world right now. It's just you, like no one else. What would you be doing with your life? What would you do day to day? And obviously you have to make it work practically, etc. But really think about what you want because you are worthy. And that's what I feel is important. If no one else is in the world, would you still be doing what you're doing today? And for me, that's a good reference point for, like, self-esteem and, like, am I doing what I love to do and who I am? So
make a little joke. If I was the only person in the world, I would stop what I'm doing and I'd try and find somebody else.
Chill. I'd Netflix. Netflix all day.
No, Netflix. Get out on the street. Find some other human being.
Guys, I just want to say that massive thank you. Like, and yeah, like, I think your Instagrams are available for everyone, you know, at the top. And I'll like, this will be on my page, a video for people who didn't see the whole thing. I want to see it. It'll be on my page, so everyone can come watch. But I just want to say a massive thank you for your time, guys. Like, for you to come and just share a bit of yourself, and I have no doubt that you guys are going to continue doing great work. And I think it's just good that we're, you know, coming together, like, you know, psychotherapists and life coaches are coming together. Like, I think it's so important to bring these fields together because they all achieve very different things, but, like, all kind of helping people come closer. And I think it's so nice to come together and just have this open conversation with different people and working at different fields and different backgrounds.
Thank you.
Someone has a question. What if there's no way? I think this is more for Yonasan. It's a really good question. What if there's no way to get that from you? You said earlier, like, repairing that relationship with your dad, etc. She's asked, what if there's no way to get that from your dad? Is there a different approach? Like,
that's a problem. No, that does exist. That is a problem that people confront. Whether someone passed away, and maybe you didn't even know your dad.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of variations on that. That is tough. There's no easy answer to that one. But what a direction to move towards in that sort of situation is to find somebody that you admire and find someone who will care about you enough that they will push back against you to make you better. It's kind of like, you know, this sort of idea of counter pressure. I mean, if you really try and hold something steady, you have to have the pressure and counter pressure to hold it steady. You need someone there who's going to push back just a little bit out of love. And whether it's joining, if you're younger, it's easy. I mean, you know, in the United States, you could join the Boy Scouts, for example, and, like, there's a lot of role models that you can get when you're older. That is a difficult one. You know, focus on making friends, focus on the relationships you do have, and, you know, try and find that special someone who, like I said, is willing to play that role for you.
Wow, like a similar role model kind of figure who will display characteristics like a dad would, but, like, in a healthy way.
You know, yeah, but it's tough. I mean, that is a tough one. That could be a life's mission, finding that person.
Wow.
But
thank you. Does
I just want
anyone?
to add to that,
Yeah,
to
go
the
on.
person
Go on.
who,
Go on.
who asked that. If you didn't receive that kind of pushback from your father, from whatever reason it is, it doesn't mean that you're at a disadvantage. It doesn't mean that. That's not part of a metric. That's not a calculation that could even be measured or anything like that. It doesn't mean that. It just means that the access points has changed and the opportunities has changed. It doesn't mean that your life is messed up now. It doesn't mean that everything is gone to hell. It just means that there are a few more challenges, but that's not a disadvantage. It could be an extreme advantage that you may gain that no one else gains.
Wow.
But that is in your hands. I mean, you essentially have that ability and have that potential to actualize that.
Yeah, they always say people who go through different challenges have a big access to a wider range of empathy. You know, empathy is a very big skill to have in life, your ability to understand people's problems and relate to people. And every time I've gone through a challenge, whether it be mental health or homelessness, etc., I've always seen it as an ability to connect with more people. And it's a big part of the reason I'm doing what I'm doing today is because of tough relationships and family and all of these things. So as much as it is a hard thing, as the therapist said, and then there's ways around it, it's also a way for you to empathize with people and connect with more and more people and help build others in a beautiful way. So very nicely said, Coach Motty.
Thank you, man. Thank you for our Yonasan, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
It was wow. That's all I have to say. Wow.
Oh, thank you guys. It was really cool. It was really cool hanging out with you guys. It was really good talking and having this conversation. It's really nice meeting both of you.
Fantastic. And
Good
thank you to the
stuff.
audience.
Good stuff.
Thank you to the audience. Without you, without you, wouldn't be able to share. And so you're helping us by helping us share our message, and hopefully you'll be helped and you can help others. So again, if you have any questions for any of us, you can DM us or get in touch with us, and sure, we'd lovely to help. Thank you so much for your time, everyone, and have a great evening and a great week. Thank you, guys.